I'm so angry with Elliot right now. I just cannot.
He is actually the worst.
He told us to wrap up our conclusion analysis. Wrap it up. Do you know what I said to him?
What'd you tell him?
I said, we are not Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Game number 2, ladies and gentlemen.
I had to go to my trailer
right
and
now.
walk around for 10, 15 minutes.
You must have been
eating nothing but green M&Ms, which
terrible.
of course were selected.
Switch it up, Elliot! Gosh!
The amount of people
let's
that
go and get there. And then we
made
didn't
eye
get there.
contact. I know, this is just
ridiculous.
This is amateur hour is what it is.
What are we at?
You got $10,000 on the line, Elliot, and you're making jokes.
Seriously.
You know what I mean?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Game number 2. Remember, the winner of this clan war, the team receives $1,000 in esports dollars. That's about $10 billion.
That could be infinity, depending on what kind of esports dollars you're working with. If you're working with a sponsor that doesn't end up ever paying, this amount of money is actually infinity. If you're dealing with a real sponsor, interestingly enough, the currency exchange is 100% equal.
Yeah.
It trades 1 for 1.
In StarCraft Brood War, it was definitely infinity.
Oh God, yeah, that was a lot of infinity there. Jeez. I remember, yeah, in Brood War, it was like, hey, you're invited to this tournament. And it was never a question of, are you sending me? Am I getting paid? No. Get
like
your ass over here, and we'll allow you to stand on a booth and talk to people about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Times. Gumio.
Oh, yeah.
Going with
Gumio
the same
did
opening, gas first. You know what? If this ends up being that same all-in, I might have to call FXO boss and talk to him about Gumio strategies. And if it's not the same, then we could actually... here's the other thing. These Koreans wake up, man. I don't know if you need to be in the ace match to wake up, but these game number 1s from these Korean players have been very underwhelming. And then it's usually game 2 where they're trailing 0-1, where they're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll use both hands now, and I'll play as fast as I can. I feel like in game number 1, they don't take these guys serious.
It's just very lackluster performance. And that's not something that we're used to seeing from these top quality players, you know? Gumio, I mean, let's be honest, he's definitely taken a lot of criticism in the past. But I think he has what it takes to be a world-class player, especially under the management of FXO, who have, produced amazing players. Lucky.
Right.
Leenock.
Well, I hope so. He's took top 4 in the GSL last season, so
yeah,
I would say that makes you a world-class player.
I would say so.
Cast can expand, no gas, so this just might as well have so far been a repeat of game number 1. In fact, even the tech lab going down for the factory at the exact same time. The map is Antigua Shipyard, of course, is forced split, or cross map, excuse me. No gold bases in the middle. Less of an issue when you're both Terran, of course. And actually, here's a little bit of difference. Cast is going double gas, following up that expand. So we're not going to see the 3 barracks. We're instead probably going to see a faster factory than Starport. And usually players get a Viking off that right away to hold off that Banshee timing.
Yeah, I actually prefer this style, though it does die to a lot of different barracks all-ins. This style, I think, overall just gets you towards that end game, and even gas first openings die, like Banshees, they'll be doing a little bit of damage, but you will be able to get the Viking on the way out by the time the Banshee gets over to your base. So
Gumio didn't scout again, by the way, in case you're wondering if he would want to,
to see where his opponent was going.
And now, I'll tell you what, I actually did this. In EGMCS, I faced off against Millennium. Game number 1, Adele Scott didn't scout me. Game number 2, I proxy-gated inside his base. And I would have loved to have seen that from Cass. I would have watched that game number 1 replay, or just at least realized in-game, and been like, this guy doesn't scout. And if he wants to try that again, I've got a game to give. Let's do a double proxy barracks, and I'm just going to run Marine and SCV up his ramp. And had he done that, this would be over. It would have been over a minute and a half ago, and FXO would have been the 3rd place finish for NASTL.
Yeah.
Because Gumio is not scouting.
No, I would love that type of play. Reactive playing to how your opponent is, overall prepared for the particular match. I think that's the best way to actually play out a game. And it's something that's underutilized, I think, in the scene. Completely honest. So we'll see how Cass actually deals with this. He is going for the Starport Tech, and it looks like he's gearing up to potentially go for Banshees. Definitely within his capacity, since the Starport is direct.
It has to be after the Viking, I gotta believe. There's no tech lab being constructed just yet. And if you're gonna fast expand before that Starport, you have to figure in responding to a Banshee, which is, I think, making its way across the map just now. And yes, there it is. Getting deflected by those Marines. No cloak inbound, so of course, this Banshee is at the mercy of the micro against the Marines.
And as we were talking about before, the Starport just finishes, so You know, the Viking will be out by the time this Banshee is able to do any more damage. And
He's killed 2 Marines, I think, right?
Yes, just 2 Marines, but
Big
that's
deal.
actually not good. I mean, just 2 Marines when you... Oh, wow. Okay, well, just 2 Marines when you're up against a gasless fast expansion. It's actually not a good trade. Let's go ahead and look at the income tab. It's 30-28. A slight advantage, but that will increase a little bit more as this Orbital Command Center still needs to be made. Don't forget that extra mule that Cass has.
Now, Gumio, if you can see on that minimap, has actually taken a 3rd base already. And that is pretty bold play. If you look at the middle of the map, we even have SCVs come out to repair that Banshee, some harass, Marine medevac, and a couple of Hellions. So nothing too severe. But the theme here is that Cass probably feels like he has to deflect this stuff, and if he does, he probably feels like he comes out ahead economically, when of course that's not the case, because Gumio has taken a pretty big, I want to say risk, but he's working with it. He's functionally trying to make it work. And at this point in time, with that Banshee going down for free, he's a bad drop away from perhaps having the tables turn on him. And if it's found out that he went 3 command center, there's a big soft spot there.
You hit that nail right in the head, man. I mean, right now he's just showing the narrative that this is going to be very aggressive play. And we know Gumio, instead of investing in an army after this, which is normally what we have happen, you know, you have an army at home that's actually defending against any kind of counterattack. That's not happening at all. Do you see any units out in the field? No. It's just a couple of Hellions here and there. Think if there were any siege tanks, which there are, there's a push right now. What can Gumio actually do? He has to use...
He's got to buy more time.
Exactly. And he's just relying on this map control that he's had to keep him safe, so he can get his 3rd up, materialize something out of that.
Hellions are a good choice, though.
Start using, putting that into his army.
Hellions cancel out those Marines pretty good, but also any kind of counterattacks can shut down that natural. A lot of times a Terran player, unless they have a wall off, will come back to save that natural, because with Hellions it could be shut down potentially forever. I mean, not necessarily forever, but for a long time. Now the push is going to the middle of the map. Vikings do land. Hellions do okay damage to Vikings, not fantastic. Meanwhile, what is he going to respond with? Because right now it is just Hellions. No tanks out just yet. If you look at that production tab, he does have a tank in queue. And siege mode is not even started, so it's actually just Hellions.
And this is very powerful by Cass. I can't believe he's actually doing this. A lot of times you will scout out with your Vikings, your initial Vikings, to see what you should actually do, but Cass is being so bold with this and just go directly into his opponent's natural. Looks like maybe even the main. Now, siege
more
mode,
Vikings for Gumio.
Yeah, siege mode is finished over here, so he will be able to snipe away at this top, but he has to be super careful.
Viking count was secretly amassed for Gumio, which means that he's going to close out the vision. Once this Viking dies, there's nothing to spot up here, and honestly, with just the 3 tanks over here, Gumio's actually sieging at the worst possible place. Like, who really cares? You're hitting, and now you'd have to scan to hit the corner of this factory. This is just prolonging the period of time for which he knows that there's a 3rd base, and look at this. He's going to pull back. That's tragic. After, well, okay, this Marine's going to scout it out. Man. That's good scouting.
Very good scouting.
But he might have dilly-dallied too long, man. Those Marines are getting fried up. And all of a sudden, Cass is in trouble.
Yeah, you need combat shields. I think combat shields are one of the most important upgrades for Terran vs. Terran, especially if you're going to go bio. Both these players do have orbital command centers. Looks like double engineering bay on the way for Koss. Koss, though, he has to scramble a little bit. I mean, he knows now that he's been behind, actually, in economy. Let's go ahead and look at that income tab, 59 to 50. So, yes, he has been behind in workers. And not only that, the 3rd mule has been up for quite a long time. So what does Cass actually do? He needs to put on a little bit of pressure. Is that going to be harass, or is it going to be a push?
Well, he is pushing on. He does have Marauders being mixed in here, and the Marauder mixture is actually really good. In the earlier part of mech, when you only have 3 to 5 tanks, Marauders represent a huge threat against that. It's, of course, when you get to like the 10, 15 tank numbers, where Marauders and Bio in general starts to take a little bit more of a back seat. But up until then, they're very, very dangerous. And by backseat, I mean they're really good against tanks in transit, but as siege mode units, they're not as good. Now, the tank count is pretty high for both players. I would say that right now the army advantage does go to Koss, but it's a question of positioning. Can he threaten this more well-saturated 3rd? Can he start to kind of pinch down on Gumio, or is Gumio going to be able to continue to widen that gap in production just because of the better economy?
Uh-oh, Vikings! No, they will not continue on to kill that medevac. Just one more shot would have killed it. But he's going to back up from here. I think, you know, Koss is just going to shark around for now. He's trying to incur as much damage as possible.
There go the Marauders.
Oh, God, no. This
really
is not
bad push.
good. and this is not going to spell anything good.
Terrible idea. Terrible idea. I mean, his tank count's high, so he's like it's going to come out kind of close. But the thing here is, he could have built off that tank count into something really special. As is, he accomplishes not much. He kills a couple of tanks. Great. The other one's going to get repaired. Air dominance does go to Gumiho, and when you're going mech, air dominance is so important.
Not only that, you actually want to trade siege tanks versus siege tanks if you're going mech versus bio. I mean, right now the bio is actually weaker, right? Normally bio just does not trade cost efficiently. So Gumiho trading tank for tank, that's actually a great trade because now it empowers his tanks even more. It's going to be harder for cost to actually take places, take control of the middle of the map because of the impressive siege tank count that we're going to be seeing out of Gumiho.
Yeah, and Gumiho is just kind of falling back on his... I mean, it's just going to be Tank, Hellion, and it looks like Viking. If you look at that production tab, that is what's coming out for a blue player. Now, there are 2 more starports going down, which is very interesting. Maybe a battlecruiser switch or a straight-up Sky Terran. I mean, if you start adding Banshees to this, Marauders and tanks are very weak against that, of course. And then with your Viking control, no medevacs to heal the bio, and no Vikings or medevacs to spot for your own tank. So this can get pretty problematic for Kaz. What I would like to see from Kaz is starting to exploit his mobility. So start taking expansions in places where Gumiho is going to he's going to have a tough time getting to them. So I'm thinking 12 o'clock. Just you need to go ahead and get that better economy for yourself. So yeah, okay, maybe bio's not as good, but if you just have the sheer numbers and you're trading for little chunks of tanks at a time, you're going to start to go ahead and whittle your opponent down. That's what I want to see.
I'll tell you, there's a critical mistake right now from Koss. He's actually supply captain. This is the time where you normally soar above the mech count. I mean, this is a point where you just mass up in Marines and Marauders and really utilize your advantage, which is number at this point. You can get good micro, get good spreads, and your opponent doesn't have nearly as many siege tanks to actually deal with the mass units. We don't see that. The supply cap is actually very crippling, and I think Koss will have a very tough time going into this. Not saying that he's dead by any means. I'm just saying that it's a little bit weaker in his style just because he hasn't been able to utilize his advantages, the inherent advantages from bio.
And we're actually seeing Koss start to do exactly what I think he should. Expansion on the left side. He's watching for drops. He's doing a good job of controlling that middle ground. By controlling that middle ground, what 4th base does Gumiho take? Really, there's only that middle expansion. When you go mech, it's not realistic for you to expand and then defend these kind of peripheral bases, but you do want to expand towards the middle of the map where you can get that control. So if Cass can just remain here and make it so it's really hard to get him off that tower and get him off that middle ground, I think he's actually in fantastic position. But of course, as I said, he is unsieging and starting to move around. I don't like this. This position is a winning position as is, and I think to jeopardize that is to misplay the style that you're doing, in my opinion. Now, we do have a drop. That left side, a couple of kills. If you look at that SCV's loss tab, Gumiho has killed 8. Not that big of a number, but still some. Now we're going to have a big push here in the middle of Gretorp.
Oh, yes. And Gumiho is fully maxed. Koss is not. And when you're maxed with mass mech, that means that can only mean... Oh, Banshee is actually taking off a couple of these tanks here. 3 tanks go down.
He's unsieged.
Wow.
Why? What is he doing?
I don't know why Koss isn't
Why are
sieged.
you unsieged?
Oh, man.
I think that's a huge, gigantic mistake. And it's costing him. Now, the next weird thing here, too, is Gumiho's actually at just 1 attack for mech. And we're approaching the 20-minute mark. He's been mech from the very beginning. I'm really wondering what happened or why he would just completely forego upgrades. In fact, after 1 attack has been upgraded, there's 0 upgrades queued up right now. So at 2-2 bio, there's a really good chance that Koss can just flat-out out-upgrade his opponent.
Yes. Most definitely. Here we go. Another engagement is happening right now. Looks like the Banshee's going to cloak up here and do good damage. There are 2 Banshees in there. The dust settles, and it looks like all the Hellions traded off for those Marines and Marauders. The big problem is he has no anti-air. Yeah. And these Banshees are just having their ways with Koss. And Koss loses center control, and that's probably the worst situation you could be in.
Yep.
There's no standing army to threaten counterattacks. Normally, if there is mech in the middle of the map, you have a group of units that are just threatening that counter. But with this position, Koss is in so much trouble.
And why did he lose center control, Gretorp? Because he was randomly unsieged just sitting there.
Yuck.
I would...
Why take such a great defensive position if you're not going to utilize it?
Well, it's just a mistake, and that's exactly what he'd say. But it's a critical mistake. It's like It's like forgetting Warp Gate upgrade as far as I'm concerned. It's just gigantic, and now we're going to see if we can hold this off. This push has come all the way over here. Marauder stepping forward. Good spread on the units, but there's actually more tanks behind this forward push. So Cass has actually microed himself into a corner a little bit here. Now these two Banshees are doing so much damage. There's not a lot of Marines here, and the Thor does go down. Gumiho doing a fantastic job of pushing this to the limit. Now behind this, he's taken his 4th. His main is close to being mined out, as well as the natural, and the 3rd actually is missing mineral piles, so lots of mules have been dropped. Gumiho needs to find these new resources.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I mean, Koss is completely cut out from his other base, or his other bases.
Yeah.
Still, those aren't even saturated. Mass Thors are not a good counter to what we are currently seeing. I mean, really, if you want to take out mech, I think the best way is to actually take air control via a lot of Vikings and really stress your opponent's siege tank count. Going Thors is just super rigid. You know, it slows you down, and the big advantage that you had all game was mobility. So by going Thors, it's like you're countering everything that you've invested into, which is mobility and
I think it's just a tilted
strength.
Response to those Banshees.
Yeah,
I mean, Marines aren't reliable.
sure.
Tanks kind of splatter them. But to your point, he's been forced into this position that's really unfortunate.
Correct.
He's getting away from what he was trying to do. I mean, look at all these barracks that are essentially just kind of dead weight right now. They're not doing much. That's because he has to churn out the Thors. So I think strategically he was outmaneuvered. Now he's going to push forward, but that's a really dug-in position. Gumiho seems to be in swimming fashion. Going to take this victory. Cass losing out on his final units. And I'll tell you what, Cass has his opponent out-upgraded. He's out-expanded him. He had him in position with that middle map. To lose this game now and to make it 1-1, I feel like this is one of those games that should haunt Cass. He should look back on this and go, I can't believe I gave that away. I totally had that.
Well, not preparing for those Banshees was crippling, and there it is. GG, ladies and gentlemen. Empire Cass will fall. So we have ourselves a 1-1 score. Gumiho and Cass are tied up. Goes down to a best of 1 after this, where they will meet up to decide who wins the $1,000 prize pool.
The ace of the ace match. Stay tuned.